I remember turning 65 on a Wednesday because there was still a pin mark on the calendar hanging on my kitchen wall after dinner. I had circled Julian 7 p.m. the week before, assuming it would be a low-key evening, just my son and his wife. I didn't anticipate balloons or cake. Maybe Talia and a few old friends telling stories, perhaps enjoying a glass or two of wine. I just wanted to feel seen. And the restaurant? It was perfect for me. I didn't need a slideshow of memories or someone singing off-key. Talia enjoyed listening to jazz music on an exposed brick rooftop, one of those hip spots. We were sitting close to the edge, with the skyline behind us and the Edison bulbs overhead, like little stars strung over the beams. Julian had insisted it was symbolic, so we simply completed the appetizers. Roasted figs and goat cheese. My old people laughed when my friend Marcus made a toast about how I was still more intelligent than attack, and that 65 was just a number. It should have ended there. I nodded, grinned, lifted my glass, took a sip of wine. But it didn't. Talia got up looking radiant and dramatic and clinked her glass with the back of a fork. I glanced at her in confusion as she held a small object and said, "Everyone, if I could have your attention for just a moment." She handed me a black and gold gift bag, white tissue paper protruding from the top like a paper crown. I smiled politely at her, reached in with both hands, touching it like it was a sacred treasure. Inside was something soft, cotton, a white baby onesie, written in gold cursive, "Room ready at Grandpa's." Everyone gasped. Someone yelled, "No way!" Julian stood up as if on cue, put his arm around Talia's shoulder like they were posing for a magazine. He smiled broadly and said, "We're expecting, and we're so grateful to my dad for offering us his apartment." Even the waiter stopped to clap. Patrons from nearby tables glanced over, joining in the cheer. I continued to hold the onesie, my face frozen. Julian added, "We know it's a big shift, but Dad's always said he doesn't need much. So it makes sense. Talia and I need the room for the baby." He winked at me, as if we had rehearsed this. We hadn't. That was the first I heard of it. I think my cheeks faked a smile. I hesitated, not sure if I should laugh or cry. "Right," I murmured, barely believing my own voice. They continued. Talia sipped her drink and said, "He'll be moving to a smaller place soon. We were just talking about getting him a kitchen appliance that's cozier, easier to handle. We'll help with the move." All I could do was nod, grin, pretend I wasn't receiving my own house keys as a birthday present. I glanced around the table. No one asked if I'd agreed to any of it. Most people looked at me with admiration, like I had just made the ultimate sacrifice. A gentleman across the table patted me on the back and said, "You're a good man, huh? Making a sacrifice for the next generation." Dinner continued. Jokes flew. Platters of risotto and grilled salmon came and went. Nobody noticed I hardly touched my plate. Even with the strollers and baby names being thrown around, I was silent. Not pouting, just quiet. That's how a man feels after dessert, hazelnuts, while silently recalculating everything he thought he understood about the people he raised. I excused myself, said I was tired. I didn't eat the cake. Talia kissed my cheek. Julian gave me an overly tight hug and whispered, "Thanks again, Dad. You don't know how much this means to us." No, I don't. But maybe I will. The walk back to my flat took longer than usual. The night air was brisk. My knees hurt a little more than they used to. The streets were quiet. I sat on the edge of my bed, turmoil in my head. I had folded the onesie and laid it carefully on the table, like a piece of evidence in a trial. I stared at it, trying to recall the exact moment I ever agreed to give up the home I built with my late wife, Ava. We bought that place in 1989. We raised Julian there. She passed away in that bedroom. the one we painted together. She left her mark in every corner. And now, it would be transitioned. And I was too stunned, too slow to even feel angry. I smiled at dinner, but something inside me shifted. The smile stayed on my face. But it wasn't the same. It was smaller, tighter, like it was holding something in place. I went into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared out the window. The city lights blinked in the distance like empty promises. And it hit me. They hadn't asked. They had decided, smiled, toasted, and took something from me. Under the guise of love. I didn't sleep much that night. But I didn't cry either, because I knew Julian had changed. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it had been happening for years, him building his own world, but now it was painfully clear. He didn't see me as his father anymore. He saw me as a placeholder. I made a silent decision that night. While his ladder blocked an old man's path to his next chapter, they thought my story was finished, but I had just picked the pen back up. I didn't leave the flat the next morning. Sunlight spilled between the curtains, casting little squares on the hardwood floor, just like Ava loved. She used to sit in her robe, sip her tea, and let the light warm her knees. This, she would say, is where peace lives. But I didn't feel peace. I felt something quieter, colder, not rage, but something close, something growing. I sat at the dining table I had just polished last week and stared at a box of old paperwork. My hands moved on their own, sifting through envelopes, letters, health documents, until I found it. The packet from 2 years ago. Julian brought it when I was hospitalized for pneumonia. I was hooked up to machines. The nurses whispered about my oxygen levels. Ava had been gone 3 years by then. Julian arrived with coffee and concern, saying, "Just sign a few things, Dad. Nothing crazy, just for insurance." I signed, because I trusted him. There it was, a notarized power of attorney, no expiration date, my signature shaky with fever, a tiny arrow sticker still stuck to the line, like a grave marker. He hadn't removed it. I leaned back in the chair, massaged my temples, felt sick again, but not in my lungs. I thought I was still in control. But Julian had quietly, legally fastened the leash. When I couldn't lift a pin without his help, I called Leah Baines, my lawyer for 15 years, brilliant, calm, loyal. "George," she said, "I figured I'd be hearing from you." I told her everything,